Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Vibes Digest. It's Cameron St. Clair, and I have today a very special guest, Emanuel Okusanya, who is a music editor at Ebony and a music contributor for Variety magazine. Thank you so much for coming.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to be here. It's super
Yes,
dope.
yes. Okay, so we're recording on a Monday. So let's just start from the basics. Like, how was your weekend? Did you do anything fun?
Yeah, my weekend was good. This was actually like one of my first weekends, like getting it back out.
Mhm.
Because I kind of started off this year like really slow. I went to Nigeria
I
over
saw you were part of
Christmas.
like Dirty December,
I
right?
was. That was my
Yeah.
first time doing Dirty December. I
Okay.
hadn't been back home to Nigeria in like 20
Oh, you're
years.
from
Yeah, I'm
Nigeria.
Nigerian,
Okay.
100% Yoruba, like that's me. But I hadn't been back home in a long
Mhm.
time. So it was cool to go back home, see family,
That's
also catch
amazing.
concerts, do the
Yeah.
whole nightlife. And so by
Yeah.
the time I got back, like right before New Year's, I was burnt. So
I'm
like these
sure.
last couple weeks, I've just been chilling. So this weekend I
Yeah.
went out.
Okay, where did you
Um,
go?
so there's this new spot. If you're familiar with like Cafe Razuli in Brooklyn, there's this new
Mhm.
spot that's like their sister location right across the street.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
and it's called Dumbala. And it's a
Okay.
little bit more like classy, a little bit more intimate.
Ooh.
The lighting and the aesthetic is a lot more just like curated versus like Cafe
Yeah.
Razuli, which is like a nightclub in some ways,
Exactly,
or it gives
yeah.
that vibe at least. So yeah, the vibes were great. The music was
That's
awesome, a lot of
awesome.
throwbacks. It's a night called Keep Warm. And so my
Okay.
friends like DJ it, and it was just
Yeah.
like a really good time.
Oh, that's amazing. That
Yeah.
sounds like so much fun. My weekend was also, well, probably a little bit crazier. It was my birthday
Hey,
yesterday.
happy birthday.
Yes. And so I did like a whole house party Saturday, Sunday. We went to brunch and then, watched the game, watched my Commanders lose, but we're going to get into that a little bit later today. But yeah, I had like a really fun time. I feel like today I'm recovering a little bit. I'm mad that I did work. I'm like, I should have taken today
A
off.
little buffer day.
Yes, I
Yeah.
should have taken a day to rest and we did not. But that's okay. We're here and we're keeping it pushing.
Yeah. Are you normally a big birthday person?
I am a big birthday person.
Nice,
I
nice.
am. I won't lie. I celebrate hard for like not only my birthday, but like my friends' birthdays. So this year, actually, I did like the house party. I found like it's actually so silly. I found an aesthetic on Pinterest and I'm like, oh, I got to do a whole party because of that. Like, I don't know why. And my friends are like, oh, well, let's do something for you. I'm like, okay, well, my birthday's on a Sunday. Let's do brunch. They planned the sweetest thing ever.
Wow.
Like, shout out to MJ. You guys have heard me talk about MJ quite a bit. Her and Nsima actually made a whole like bingo card
Mm.
game. And it was like 20 plus different sayings of like stuff that I say.
Oh
They mentioned like the
wow.
podcast, like my favorite drinks. It was so sweet. I cried at brunch. I'm like, this is so
Yeah.
thoughtful.
It's incredible when you have friends who pay attention, you know what I
Yes,
mean? Like they are actually like there with
exactly.
you and like they actually are
100%.
thoughtful and like do things that are gonna make you feel seen. That's
I
awesome.
know,
Yeah.
100%. Yes, that was exactly it. I felt so seen in that moment. I was like, wait, this is so emotional. Like, I'm so embarrassed. Like, I'm literally crying at brunch. How embarrassing. Let's chug another mimosa.
Right, 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 right.
But yeah, that was my weekend. But okay, I know we have like a lot of topics to get into. There's been a lot of trending stuff. Some of y'all may be wondering, Kim, what happened to last week's episode? Well. We can go ahead and blame the lovely TikTok ban for that. Yeah. So I use podcasts. So, well, I mean, I guess that's like an excuse, but it definitely impacted my recording and stuff because I use Podcastle and CapCut to edit all of my content. And well, I mean, obviously, I wasn't able to use CapCut. I feel like a lot of people didn't even realize that
That they were all connected
that they're
under the same umbrella.
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Like there were so many people saying, "Oh, let's move over to Lemon 8." And I'm like, "Y'all, this is
It's the same
all
company.
same company. It's all getting banned." The worst part though was that like the TikTok ban was pretty short, quite literally 12 hours.
Yeah.
And then CapCut though was days. So that like
Is it
really
back
impacted me.
now?
It's back now.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
it's back now. So like I'm catching up on all the TikTok stuff and whatnot. But first off, do you like have TikTok? Like were you impacted by it?
Yeah, so I definitely use TikTok, but I use it more as like a consumer where like I'll
Okay.
go on the search option and say like, Wednesday night in Bushwick,
Oh,
what to
wow.
do
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
like putting up my own content. I do want to
Mm,
put up more of my own content because I feel like I do a lot of stuff that's like interesting and fun,
mhm.
that I want to
For
like
sure.
archive in a way.
Yeah.
So now that the ban is like over, I'm honestly more inspired to go and do it
Mhm.
because like what if this happens again? I want to make the most of my time now.
Exactly.
But yeah, like I was impacted. I didn't realize how much I actually go on
Use
TikTok
it.
until like that little sign popped up.
I
And they were like,
know.
we're out of business. And I was like, man.
But like also the muscle memory, I don't know, maybe I'm just really addicted, but there were multiple times that I clicked on the app and it wasn't
Yeah,
opening. And I'm like, this is
this is crazy. It's
insane.
kind of like going to the fridge when you have like no food
No
at
food.
home and you just keep opening it, hoping that
Yes.
something is just gonna reappear. And I was in the same
100%.
boat. But then honestly, like a lot of my friends got caught up because they hated the muscle memory element of it and they just
They
deleted the
delete
app.
it and they
And
can't
now you can't go back to the app store and reinstall it.
wait,
So you're
that's
kind of
so
stuck.
bad.
Yeah.
I heard people are like selling their phones.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
selling their phones like okay, that's like a new level of addiction. I don't know. I don't know if it's worth paying a couple grand to like be able to use the app again.
Right.
But I definitely was telling my friends that like I didn't realize that they were gonna block it from us. I thought it was gonna be like another Flappy Bird situation. Do you remember Flappy Bird?
Flappy Bird. Yeah, it's the thing where you like tap and it goes up the like.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And this is so sad, but like you know that people were like really addicted. Somebody
Yeah.
like I think one or two people, unfortunately,
It
like
might have-
yes,
Yeah.
they sadly yes, that happened. And so the app got banned. However, if you had the app on your device,
You're
like you were good. You were still able
Yeah.
to use it. So that's why I thought TikTok was gonna be no.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And now people are selling them for like $20,000 and stuff.
Oh my
And
God,
I'm kinda-
20.
Yeah. I saw it on eBay or something like
I
that.
thought it was like 1,000.
Yeah, and GameStop is also like buying phones with TikTok on it. But I always
Whoa.
thought that like your apps were tied to like your iOS account. So I don't really know how
yeah.
that works, like once you sell it.
I don't know how that works either because I'm also thinking TikTok is mainly like uses my phone to log in. So yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I guess you could go on the desktop.
Yeah,
But
true.
that's like such a totally different vibe.
That is a different vibe. And you can't like properly swipe. Like you're just scrolling.
Yeah.
Essentially. But that's so bad. I also think it's hilarious that it happened at like 10 p.m. and then we woke up and it was back.
Right.
Like it was very unserious.
Right. Yeah, I feel like it was a whole like ploy just to get people like nervous about it. Because then
Mhm.
the outcry once it was banned, like that's all I was seeing across like all my socials,
Yes,
all the news, like TikTok is
tears.
banned. And I think
Yeah.
they are kind of leveraging that to put pressure on politicians to like figure this whole thing out. And the most annoying
100%.
part of it for me, honestly, has been the Trump element of it all.
Yes.
Because now he's looked at as like the savior who came in and saved TikTok. And
Yeah.
there are so many people who don't know that he's the one
He's
who
the one who-
initiated
yes.
this whole thing right before he left
Exactly.
office. So
Exactly.
yeah.
Someone described it like it kind of reminds them, imagine getting punched in the face and the person who punches you in the face takes you to the hospital and they're like, oh, you should like be thanking me
Right.
for like
right.
sending you off here. Like, no, not at all. Also, it was so silly because he wasn't even in office. The inauguration
Exactly.
hadn't even happened yet before. And he's like, oh, thank you, President Trump, not former like you weren't the president yet. Like
Yeah.
this is
It's all a ploy, and I think
it
actually
is.
a moment like this is great because for people who choose to pay attention, this could be a great awakening moment for them. To just kind
Yeah.
of know that a lot of the things that we see, unfortunately, in media,
Right.
on the news, it goes through these like different steps and processes, and like there are a lot of
Right.
stakeholders who want a certain message to be a certain way. So
100%.
always be critical of what you see online.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm already noticing differences. I feel like my algorithm isn't still 100%
Mm,
there. I haven't seen a ton of international like content in
yeah.
a while. So yeah, I'm very curious how this is gonna pan out, but hopefully it stays. Hopefully it stays.
Yeah, me too. I hope it stays.
Well, now we're going to transition over into my favorite lovely segment, Digital Digest, where we talk about all things trending on social media. And the first thing is so sad. Let's talk about this ASAP Rocky trial.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those who don't know, ASAP Rocky was charged with ASAP Rocky was charged with 2 felony counts of assault with a semi-automatic firearm. He's accused of firing his gun twice in the direction of ASAP Rocky, which is insane. I didn't know, like, his friend. Like,
Yeah.
he's a part of, or used to be a part of ASAP Mob. That's wild. This happened in November of 2021 in California. He pleaded not guilty last January. And then recently, he was given a plea deal of 180 days and I believe 3 years of probation,
Yeah.
but he rejected it.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. I think the charges against him are pretty intense.
Oh, that's right. I
You
forgot to
know,
mention that he's facing up to 24 years.
yeah,
Yeah.
24 years. I think, versus 6 months. A lot of people would be pressured into taking the 6 months and just kind of figuring it out from there. But
Hmm.
if he feels like he's innocent, more power to him. I don't know the exact logistics of the case, but I do
Yeah.
know like sources close to his team and close to like his legal team were pretty much saying, allegedly,
Hmm.
that he felt like taking the plea deal would effectively like ruin his career because he's a really high profile,
Oh, okay.
actor and
Yeah.
designer, musician. He has a lot of great deals
Hmm.
going on right now. So I totally understand wanting to
That's
protect
fair.
that if you feel like
Protect
you're
the brand.
honestly like
Yeah.
innocent. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I didn't even think about it that way, like 100%, because I was one of those people that's like, okay, like just take the 6 months. And like
Yeah.
sometimes you don't even actually end up serving the full time, the full 6 months. I was just thinking about him as a father,
Mm.
a husband, but primarily a father of those two young boys. And I'm like, you're facing, I mean, granted, we know he's probably not going to get 24. That's just like the max sentencing. God forbid this doesn't pan out the way that, we're hoping it will. Like, that's a huge gamble. What
Yeah.
would you do? I'm curious. Like, if you
Oh.
were in Rocky's shoes, you're married to Rihanna,
Right.
you got two little boys. Yes, you are like, I mean, I don't know if he's at the height of his career right now.
I would say he's having like a whole like brand shift right
Yeah,
now.
he's more in the fashion space,
Yeah, he's more
right?
in the fashion space. He's kind of branching out outside of things of music, but
Mm-hmm.
still kind of has like this buzz around his bars. I think he's actually in a really unique spot in his career, and I think there's
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of interest in his music and just who he is as a brand.
Yeah.
So I understand again like the caution around just accepting that plea deal. But to be honest, I can't really say what I would do if I was in that situation. For one, I
Really?
try not to commit any crimes. So I feel like that is already like
Yeah.
it's hard for me to kind of envision myself in that place. But honestly, if I had as much at stake, I probably would try to fight for my innocence as well. I think a lot
Okay.
of like the government pushes us to just accept some of these plea deals.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of stipulations around like, what happens after your time is served. Like,
Mm-hmm.
are you able to still vote? Are you able to travel freely? He's an
You're
international
so
superstar.
right.
I know like the UK, you know, tightens up their immigration toward people who
Mm-hmm.
have like violent convictions. You know what I
Yes,
mean? What does that put
yes.
him in when it comes to being in the fashion world? So I think he has a
Right.
lot at stake.
That's so
So I can't really
true.
say, but I understand where he's coming from.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's 100% true. Again, you're thinking about this way more than I thought about this, and I appreciate this. This is why I love having guests, having different like perspectives on the situation. I didn't even think about the long-term effects, like
Yeah.
the voting, the traveling is huge. I know Canada don't play.
Yeah.
You have like the tiniest charge and you are not
They don't
allowed.
want you. They're
That you
happy
are
over
not
there.
allowed.
Everybody's good.
Right. You will get flagged quickly. That is so true. And you know what? Like, my dad made a good point. He was saying to me that he has the best lawyers.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, they would not advise him, hey, let's just keep fighting this if there wasn't a good shot. The only thing that makes me slightly nervous is the fact that it's on video.
Right. Oh,
But they
I
tried
didn't
to
even know
say
that.
that the gun wasn't real.
Yeah. I remember
Yeah,
reading parts of that.
exactly. He just uses it for like protection and all that. This is bad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
California is also a horrible place to be because if you think about like gang affiliation, violence, all that, like that's tough
Yeah.
because you're not in your home area, your home city, New York.
Right.
Like
And I think a lot of people have to remember that he is still a rapper. Yes, like,
yeah.
he's super into fashion, he's into all of these other things outside of music,
Mm-hmm.
but a lot of rappers have unfortunately dealt with like gun violence and being the
Yeah.
victims of gun violence. And so, I don't really blame people when they find like different means to protect themselves because
No,
at
one
the end of the
hundred
day, like
percent.
you said, he has two small children. You want to make it back
You
home
need to
to those
protect.
kids
Yeah.
regardless of like the optics of things. It's like that's your main priority.
One
So
hundred
again,
percent.
I'm not gonna say he did it. Obviously, he's
Yeah.
fighting for
We
his
don't
innocence, but
know.
like
We don't know.
I
The
support him, and I hope like it all works out for him.
I do
Honestly,
too. I do too. I will also say, in case people don't know much about this case, the friend, or I guess no longer his friend, he's okay. He's doing well. He
okay,
actually, if I'm not mistaken, walked away from the scene. Like
okay,
I don't even think if it hit him. Hey, don't quote me. I might be wrong here. it didn't cause any damage though. Like the article I was reading, they said that he just walked away with his knuckles scuffed. So yeah, I think it's all honestly primarily the possession piece because I want to say ASAP has had a history with the law before. So that was like the big deal there. Also, California is really strict.
Yeah, as liberal as a state as they seem to be, they come very strict when it comes to like arresting and imprisoning people and like 100%. The whole judicial system. Yeah. So again, like just hoping everything works out for him because yeah, he has a bright future ahead of him.
He does. He does. So I kind of mentioned this earlier about my Commanders, but I guess we can go on to the next unfortunate trending topic. Are you into football?
Honestly, I'm not the biggest football guy.
Okay.
I always tap in around the Super Bowl. So like I knew what was happening yesterday. Just because like a lot of my friends were like tapped in. Yeah.
Were they rooting for the Eagles?
So yeah. So a lot of my friends are from the East Coast. We were rooting for the Eagles.
That's such a shame.
I'm a Jersey guy. They're out in Philly. So like
that's such a shame.
We usually like rival. But when it comes to moments like this, it's like, all right,
let's band together. Yeah, that makes sense, honestly. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, number one, I will say I'm so proud of the Commanders because no one thought we would make it this far. Oh my gosh, like it's been 33 years since we even made it to an NFC championship, so that was huge. I am sad how badly we lost because the one thing about Philly fans, oh my gosh, all down my timeline. Like the text messages, they're very loud. Win or lose, loud. Loud as hell. Like I was telling folks, like, even if they lose, they're burning the streets. If they win, they're burning the streets. It does not matter.
Either way, you're going to see them, you're going to feel them, you're going to know that they're there. So it's kind of hard to ignore.
It's so hard to ignore. And trust me, I want to ignore it right now. It's all down my timeline. But we're right back to what I feel like just happened. Well, not just happened. I don't think last year was Eagles. Wasn't it the year before?
I think it might have been the year before, but don't quote me.
Right. Eagles and the Chiefs. Yay. Yeah. I'm so tired of the Chiefs. I am a hater. I will fully say it. I'm a hater.
Yeah. You know, I feel like there's this thing that happens across all sports when it's like the same people end up being in the finals. You just get so exhausted because I remember like there was an era when it was just always like the Lakers versus Golden State or like whatever team LeBron was on versus Golden State. And then it's just like, okay, can we get some new players in the mix? Can we get a little excited? So I feel like when the Commanders were close to making it, you know, people were just excited to see a different matchup than we've seen in recent times. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like whatever Kansas City is doing is working for them because they just are the team to beat.
Do you believe the conspiracies though? Have you seen them about people thinking that they're like cheating? It kind of reminds me of the Patriots too, like with Tom Brady, with Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, I didn't watch the Bills versus Chiefs game, but apparently there was like a couple of calls that they were like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. I feel like, you know, I can't say too much specifically when it comes to sports, but when you kind of zoom out and think about like media and what we consume, a lot of it is staged. A lot of it is curated to like, you know, okay, I'm not gonna say that I'm a part of that team, like staging stuff, not quite. But like when you even think of like the Grammys or like any like major like award show, it's like one, there's a certain winner that people are most excited to see win. And those things tend to generate the most, you know, buzz and views and engagement. So will I say that it's all necessarily staged? Maybe not, but I think there are certain things that are kind of like set up to get the desired outcome more likely.
Yeah.
Knowing that like, okay, if the Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl, there's going to be so many moments where Taylor Swift is on the Jumbo Street. America loves Taylor Swift, even if not all of us necessarily do. But there are going to be a lot of people who want to see, what does Taylor wear to her man's like Super Bowl game? You know, like
100%.
What is she wearing? What's her hair? Like there's a whole segment of people who are not watching football before that will want to know. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there are people who can kind of like shift it to make it happen that way.
Well, that's why they also think that it's a PR stunt. If we're being honest, the whole like pop girl football, like, oh my gosh, it's a High School Musical. Like it's like a lot of people think that that's set up for that exact reason. So let's keep going with the Super Bowl. Kendrick's performing, and you're talking about this whole like media. Some things are like a little bit scripted. I love that you said that because I was actually listening to another podcast today. I don't know if you heard of like the new Rory and Mal podcast. Well, Mal is the biggest
the Rory and Mal
podcast. Rory and Mal podcast. Okay, yes. So you know about Rory and his feelings towards Kendrick. So he's always going to find a way to hate. love the podcast down, but always gonna find a way to hate. And he was saying like about how SZA is was like in the promo,
Mhm.
and he was like, "Oh, do you guys think that Kendrick and SZA are now doing a joint performance because Kendrick couldn't like do it on his own?" Which is crazy. I think instead, in my mind, number one, and he was just saying the timing of the rollout just seems like, oh, was it like rehearsals going on, and they were like, oh, you need to bring someone else in here? I don't believe that
I
to
don't
be
believe
true.
that at all.
I don't believe that at all. I think it's also very intentional, like you're saying, when it comes to media. Like, who else would make more sense? They have so many freaking songs together.
They could do a Super Bowl set of just their
just their songs.
and it would still be a great show.
Absolutely. So I exactly like you said, like I feel you already know that there's going to be another guest. Like most people do that anyway. Usually it's a surprise who comes on. I think we all figured it would be SZA. So I feel like this is just now kind of like getting people more excited for the performance. But I think that's kind of crazy that he was like she's needed.
No, I don't think she's needed. I think she's gonna be a great addition.
Yeah.
I think she can either do like half a song or do 3 songs, and we'll still like really enjoy her being there. But Kendrick Lamar is easily one of the best performers out right now across all genres, across specifically rap.
I was gonna say he's the best with rap, but you're saying all genres.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say he's the best. I think that's like a really like intense conversation that we could probably spend an entire podcast episode talking about.
Yeah.
But like out of rap, I would say he's probably the best. And then out of music as a whole, actively right now, releasing music in their prime, easily like top 5, top 10. Easily, yeah.
Okay, for sure. I'm down to say he's the best out of rap. The only person I think that's coming close to him is Travis Scott.
Yes. Travis Scott is great. He has a lot of energy. I think it becomes like more of like a personal preference type of conversation.
Yeah.
Because to me, Travis Scott like brings a lot of energy. He does a lot of the jumping around. His stages are like really like
the production is there.
Top tier, like way outside the box. But I almost feel like Kendrick still occupies this space of like traditional performance where like he dances a little bit. He does a little bit of choreography.
Yes.
He incorporates, you know, different elements of the stage.
He's
you
storytelling.
Storytelling.
Literally throughout the entire performance. I'm going to the concert in June.
Are you going to go to the LA show or are you going to go?
No, I'm going to the DC show, but that's his last show of the tour. So I feel like it's going to be huge.
Bring out some surprise guests.
Yes,
stuff, yeah.
I'm hoping. It's also, I want to say it's on, oh no, it might be June 18th, not Juneteenth, but
it's
close
that
enough.
Week, so it's pretty close.
Yeah, yeah.
And DC is Chocolate City. I lived in DC for like 5 years, so that's
yeah. I feel like he's gonna do a huge one for us. So I'm super excited about that. Super excited for the performance. Do you think though, this is another huge debate. Let's do a quick little prediction. Is he gonna perform They Not Like Us? Now you're the media person, right? So do you think that they're gonna allow him to say pedophile on live TV?
I've been having this conversation with a lot of friends, a lot of people within the media space, because it is so tricky. You know, you obviously have 2 of the most global rap stars involved in a beef. So this obviously has gone outside of just the mainstream, you know, rap scene.
Yeah.
It definitely has like gone to the mainstream media. But I think it's still a thing that is kind of encapsulated within our community. And when you bring that song to the Super Bowl halftime show, that gets like on average anywhere between 110 to 125 million people just in the US alone.
Yeah.
I think that does kind of, you know, project that message to a larger crowd. And I don't know. I've honestly thought that they're not gonna let him perform that song, and part of me thinks that that is actually why Drake has this whole lawsuit situation
with
versus like
UMG.
UMG, because maybe they can get a way to like put a block on the song temporarily. I
Right.
don't know. I don't know. Part of me also thinks that like Kendrick knows that this moment has been really big for him, and
Right.
he's obviously like used as a launch pad to drop his last album, GNX.
Yeah.
He's doing the Super Bowl. He's going on tour with SZA.
Yeah.
The reception around his most recent music is way bigger than it was around Big Steppers, honestly. I love that album. I thought it was great. But when you compare it to like the music he was coming out with before,
Absolutely.
it didn't have the same level of like cultural, like wow moment.
Yeah.
And so I almost feel like he doesn't want to center too much of his career around Drake.
Around the beef.
You know
That
what I
makes
mean?
sense. That
So
makes
it's almost a
sense.
power move to be like, yeah, this was the #1 song for like 5
That's
weeks last year.
true.
Yeah, it's nominated for a whole bunch of Grammys. He'll probably have won some Grammys for the
Yeah.
song by the time the Super Bowl halftime show happens. But
Yeah.
like, a part of me feels like he wants that to just be a moment and just leave it there, which is why it also
Yeah.
wasn't on GNX. You know, so in my
I
mind,
agree.
he might not even perform it because he doesn't want to. Hopefully.
That would be so sad. I feel like he kind of also has to. But I completely agree with you. A lot of people were also predicting that he was gonna put They Not Like Us on GNX because
Mhm.
that's an automatic #1, right? But I don't like when artists do
Just
that.
tag on a song that wasn't really a part of the moment.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Because it also would make no sense on GNX if he did include it. You know, at that point, you might as well just add all the beef songs.
Right,
You know,
right.
or just drop an EP with all of them.
Not a bad idea.
But yeah, no, I completely agree. I definitely can see him saying like, okay, that was just like one moment. I even think about his little shady reference of like no round twos,
Mhm.
kind of responding back to Drake like, we're not doing this anymore, like we're done.
Yeah.
I also feel as if some people who likes to forget about like his damn album, for example, and just forget like how amazing Kendrick Lamar is as a performer, as an artist, all together. They like to act like the only reason why he's even performing is because of the Drake beef.
Yeah, that's so
As if
silly.
like he wouldn't be able to be on that stage regardless before or not. He's also been on that stage before, you know,
Yeah.
as a special guest. But yeah, I could see him like saying, yeah, I don't want to perform this song, like you said, because you don't want to just keep adding validity to like everyone else's comments. I could also see it just being like maybe the instrumental, you know,
Yeah.
like in the
Which still
beginning, and
sends
he
like a
just
message.
it sends a message,
But it doesn't have to like, because you already know, like if he
Yes.
does the song, all the headlines are going to be about that song. And it almost
Absolutely.
overshadows his legacy in some way.
Yeah.
And I
Oh,
almost feel
yeah.
like, you know, that special guest performance that you mentioned that he did
Mhm.
a few years ago was almost like his tryout. And we've seen people do
Yeah.
that before where they have like the special guest moment and then a few years down the road,
They
they
get
end up
the
having their own moment.
exactly.
And he did such a great job with that I
He
feel
was the
like
best.
he was the best.
He
Easily
was
the
the
best. And even in
best.
that moment, he had I want to say like one of
Yeah.
the least amount of times out of all the surprise
He had like
guests,
2 minutes.
and he killed it and made
Absolutely
it so
killed it.
Kendrick, you know.
Yeah.
So
1000%. I'm so excited. I think honestly, some of my friends want to go out, but I'm like, I want to be home. I just kind of like, I want to be on a TV, like maybe if we did a house party or something like that, but
yeah,
I want to properly watch the performance. Even if it has to be a watch party, it can't be a bar
yeah.
where everyone's going to be talking over it. Like I need to properly hear this performance and be locked in.
Right.
Yeah.
And last thing I would say, it's probably going to be a great time to be around people who actually love football and also love music because they're going
Right.
to be locked in for both elements. I think sometimes people kind of just
Exactly.
like zone out when it comes to the halftime show if they're
Yeah.
not really into music, but pick the right crowd and you'll have a great time.
100%. 100%. Okay, so you kind of touched on the Grammys. Let's talk a little bit about Grammy predictions.
Yeah.
So there is quite a few categories. We don't have time to go through like all of them because there's way too many. First of all, I didn't even know that some categories there's 8 nominees.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Also, you interned for the Recording
I
Academy.
did.
Yes. I did a little
Wow.
research.
Yeah.
So if you want to also like kind of tie in your experience with that, and I mean, my big question is, do we think that Beyonce is gonna finally get Album of the Year?
Yes. So I'll start with my experience in part of the Recording Academy.
Mhm.
So I was actually a part of this cohort called Grammy U, which is set up
Okay.
specifically for college students.
Nice.
So if you're interested in music, if you're interested in the industry and you want to find a way to just like learn more about it and get
Yeah.
involved, you're able to join your cohort in your city, wherever your school is based.
Oh wow.
So they have like different cohorts around DC, New York, Philly, just about almost every major and like mid-level city in the US.
Okay.
So it's a way to get involved like super locally. And I
Mhm.
was a part of the DC chapter. I went to
Nice.
Howard,
Yes.
HU.
Is it the Royal HU?
You know what else? You know what's up. You know what's up. We haven't got to say it for real. But so I was a part of that and I
Mhm.
interned with them for a few years. And I actually think my senior year, I got an opportunity to go to the Grammys.
Oh my
So like I bought my own
gosh.
flight. I saved up a little bit of money. I bought a tuxedo. I went, I was a
Oh
seat
my
filler. But it was the
gosh.
best time ever, like just getting a chance
Yeah.
to see it in person. And I think it was a year that Alicia Keys hosted. And it was just so
Okay.
much that went on. Nipsey Hussle, like that was one of his last public appearances
Yeah.
because I want to say
Yeah.
like 3 weeks later he had passed away.
Mm.
So it just felt like such a special time to be there. It was the year
Mhm.
Cardi B won the Grammy for Best Rap
Oh,
Album, which was super
wow.
controversial at the time. Still kind of is. But it's a full
Yeah.
circle to this year because now I
Mhm.
want to say Doechii is the first female artist to be nominated for Best Rap Album since then.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think she's a
Okay.
contender for that. So I know we'll get into like the nominations and all of that, but
Yeah.
that was such an incredible time for me. And
That sounds
it was one of my
amazing.
entry points into the media industry. So I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. Do you feel like you kind of gain a better understanding of how the voting system works and stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah. Even understanding that like the Recording Academy does so much more outside of just hosting the Grammys every year. They have
Mm.
this organization called Music Cares that
Okay.
essentially provides like resources for like working class musicians because there's so
Mhm.
many people who work at like local bars
Yeah.
or they're like a drummer that tours like to sustain
Mhm.
themselves and like not all of them are millionaires living in Beverly Hills. A lot of them
True.
like work gig
True.
to gig, contract to contract. So they do a lot to support them. So even with the LA fires, I think
Mhm.
they've already donated like $2.5 million
Oh my
to like working
goodness.
class people in the industry.
That's
So I learned a
amazing.
lot about that as
Yeah.
well as like the shiny stuff like the Grammy
Yeah.
Awards
Yeah.
and all of that. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, let's kind of quickly go over a few of these categories.
Yeah.
So, record of the year. This one is interesting. So you have the Beatles, you have Beyonce, Texas Hold'em, you have Sabrina Carpenter, Espresso. I feel like that's a tough one
Yeah, that's a tough one to
because
beat.
you also have Birds of a Feather too by Billie
Yeah.
Eilish. You have Not Like Us, Kendrick, and then you have like Taylor Swift and Chapel and all of that.
Yeah.
So out of those, I kind of named the top four mainly that I think is going to be a contender for real, like Texas Hold'em, 360. Oh, not oh wow. Sorry, Charlie XCX was another one. That's another one that I felt like blew up.
Yeah, Brat Summer was like a thing, and now they're trying to make it like Brat Winter, like
Yeah,
Brat New
yeah.
Year, trying to keep
That's
the
a tough
momentum going.
one.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
my
a hard
god, so
one.
that's like five like really tough ones.
Yeah.
Or like it could just go to Taylor Swift because I feel like it almost always goes to Taylor Swift.
Yeah, so for that category, I'm personally leaning toward Billie Eilish because
Mm.
Billie Eilish is a Grammy darling. Her first album, she's one of the few artists to completely sweep the general category. So that's going to be
Oh
Best
wow.
New Artist, which you can only be nominated for and win one time in your career. So she won that
Yeah,
Album of the Year, Song of the Year, and Record of the Year all in one night already. So that
that's
just already
wild.
proves that like the
Yeah.
Grammys, they love her.
Yeah.
Obviously, I think Not Like Us is gonna be a strong contender as
Mhm.
well. Texas Hold'em. I would love Beyonce, and I think she should get everything personally. But I
Yeah.
don't know for Record of the Year just because like she's not gonna necessarily have her core R&B voters voting for her and really vying for her.
Mm,
It's not a pop record.
exactly.
And the country community is to be determined how much they really support her this go around.
It seems like they aren't.
So I feel like the nomination was like a given, but for her to actually take it home and win could be a bit challenging.
That could be a bit challenging. I kind of agree with you. Let me also give you guys some context because I don't know how much, everyone knows about the difference between record of the year and song of the year. So record of the year recognizes the artist and the production team for a specific recording of a song, while song of the year recognizes the songwriters for the song's composition. So you just made a good point about like I could definitely see Billy winning record of the year. I don't think Not Like Us would probably get record of the year, but I'm wondering if he has a stronger chance with song of the year,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel like for both,
especially timing wise, because I wonder if they factor that into it, right? Like, I mean, granted, like some people said that he had that song up his sleeve for
for a
some
minute,
time,
yeah.
but let's say like nobody uses, that logic. They're like, okay, let's just think about what we actually know and what's factual. He dropped that song like same day, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, right? When Drake kind of responded.
Yeah.
And the fact that it is written by him, I'm just wondering if they would like add that to, the
That
voting.
helps. That absolutely helps because a lot of the Song of the Year winners tend to have
Hmm.
fewer writers. So I'm almost sure that like Kendrick
Mm,
wrote that song entirely by himself. At
yeah,
most, I think maybe a producer has like a songwriting credit or something to that degree. But like
right.
he essentially crafted that song by himself. So that's definitely going to help him in the Song of the Year category.
Mm-hmm.
But then in that same category, you do kind of find him now going up against Shabuzi, who's had a really great year.
Yeah.
And a bar song, Tipsy, was like running for number one for like 19 weeks. I actually think it's
Yeah.
tied, ironically, with Old Town Road as the longest
Oh,
running number one
wow.
ever. So I think the Grammys are going to want to come in and support him with a general field nomination. But then I'm pretty sure in that category we also have Espresso yet again being nominated, or is that just Record of the Year?
Let me see. Oh no, it's the one Please,
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 please, please.
Please.
Yeah, which was
Yeah.
also a song that critics actually leaned a little bit more toward than Espresso because the songwriting is
Mm.
just a little bit more like intuitive and
Yeah.
innovative.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, it's just like a really packed year. But if I have to
It
say
is a packed
someone,
year.
I think that's where we're gonna see Kendrick take it, or we might see Beyonce take it.
Okay, okay. Yeah, because Beyonce's up for Texas Hold'em again. But you are one if you're saying that they typically like the songs that have like the least amount of writers, it's just Kendrick
Yeah.
listed here. A lot of these people though, they do have a lot more.
Yeah,
They do have a
yeah,
lot more. But except for, well, Sabrina has 3.
yeah.
She has 3 people. But yeah, that's gonna be tough. Regardless, that's gonna be tough. I'm rooting for my girl Doechii. I don't know if you remember this, but when we met, you were finishing up like you did I talk about how we met?
We haven't talked
We
about
haven't
it
talked
yet.
about
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Okay. So we met at CultureCon, which is absolutely hilarious because I was not supposed to be at CultureCon. One of my friends, she was not able to come up to New York last minute. She was like, hey, like I have a ticket. Do you want the ticket? Suddenly I'm acting like my friend Marin that day. And so I got to pull up and then my friend and I were like tired. I'm like, oh, there's like Coca-Cola's outside. Let's just go grab a Coke. And then I saw Emanuel and he was
Yeah.
just finishing up like interviewing some people. I think like you're probably definitely you might be one or two of the only like connections I made because I felt like a lot of people at CultureCon, unfortunately, like we're just kind of like sticking to people that they know.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that you just like immediately like you were starting the conversation like, oh,
Yeah.
like why are you guys out here? Like, are you a content creator? Are you here for like business?
Yeah.
You were just finishing up like interviewing some people and you were asking folks about like who's like their favorite artists of the year and like who do we think is like up on the rise? And I said Doechii.
Yeah. And I agreed.
Yes, yes, you did agree. And I think you told me like not a lot of people were saying Doechii.
Yeah, I feel like at that time she was just a few months ago really was
Yeah,
really like transitioning from being a niche artist that like if you knew
100%.
you knew, but now she's everywhere.
She's
And I kind of
everywhere.
foresaw it because she has these elements to her that really just exude like star power. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a thing where it's like if people don't get it now, they'll eventually get it.
Yeah.
And I think the Grammy nominations and her doing like Genius with like Issa Rae, and then she
Yes,
did her
that was
Tiny Desk, I think like
so
the week
smart.
before. All of those like things lined up so perfectly where it's like, if you didn't know about her, now you certainly
You
do.
definitely know about her,
Yeah.
100%. So yes, she is up for Best New Artist, and
Hmm.
I am hoping she takes it.
I'm hoping.
Can you give us a little bit of background about why people who are not new artists end up in the new artist category?
Yeah, so this actually goes back to like 2009, maybe around like 2010, when Lady Gaga popped on
Hmm.
the scene, and she was like the biggest artist I think the planet had seen since maybe
Yeah,
like Michael
yeah,
Jackson. It was like you couldn't escape Lady Gaga, but at the
right.
time, their rules were set up where if you had released any music that even got a nomination or was
Mm-hmm.
eligible for a nomination
Mm-hmm.
prior to that specific year, um, you were no longer eligible for Best New Artist. So I think before
Okay.
like all her songs went super mainstream, she had gotten
Yeah.
nominated for like a remix or like a dance recording version of a song. And so that made her
Mm.
ineligible. And it was just like
Oh
so much
wow.
outrage because if there's anybody who would have been a
Wow.
surefire shoe in for that
Yeah, it
at
was
that time,
her.
it would have been her. So
Wow.
after that, they revamped the award to where you had to release your first studio album in order
Yeah.
to be eligible. So a lot of people would get away with like releasing
Oh,
EPs and
that's what
mixtapes,
Doechii
and
did.
that's kind of what Doechii did. Although
Yeah.
now they even tweaked it a little bit further and made it your mainstream breakthrough. So you could actually
Oh
release like
wow.
3 studio albums, but like if nobody really knows about them, then you're still
Yeah.
eligible, which is like this gray area
That's
because if I know about
interesting.
you, but the
Right.
main public doesn't, where
Right.
do we kind of fall? So I think it's perfect for someone like
Mm.
Doechii. She
I
deserves
agree
it.
too. I agree 100%. The only thing is like Shabuzi's in that category too,
Yeah.
but I feel like he's been around,
Yeah, yeah. For at
right?
least a couple of years at this point.
Yeah, and Sabrina Carpenter is in this category
This is her
too.
sixth album, and she's been signed to a major label for years. But I
That's
guess the idea is like
crazy.
prior to this, or I think last year when she was on the
Yeah.
Eras tour with Taylor Swift, that was
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people's like first introduction to her.
That's true. That's
So
true.
it's kind of that weird gray area, but then
Yeah.
again, like she kind of feels like she deserves it. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's fair, but that's when it does get tough because when, like you said, like once you think of like a real breakthrough moment,
Yeah.
in my mind, it would be Doechii, but I can unfortunately see Sabrina taking that category because she had an amazing 2024 year.
Yeah.
I won't lie. Okay, cool. Well, I'm super excited to watch. And, if you guys have been listening and you're like, oh my goodness, this guy knows so much about music. Yes, that's exactly why he's on. So I do have a couple questions for you. And
Yeah.
you kind of talked about like, your internship, but I just want you to walk the audience through your career overall. Like what even got you inspired by music? And yeah.
Yeah. So, wow, what a journey. Like, I'm super grateful just to start because music is the thing that I love the most. So,
Mm-hmm.
being in a position where I'm able to do something that I love on a daily basis, even when it is stressful, even when it comes with a lot of like struggle, I'm just
Yeah.
grateful that it's towards something that I actually genuinely care about.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like I mentioned, I went to Howard and I was gonna be like a lawyer. I was on the pre-law track for like a
Oh,
year and a half
wow.
just because like I like to chat, as you can see. I like to argue. I like to debate, especially around stuff that I know. So I was like,
Yeah.
let me become a lawyer and just do that. But then after about a year or so, I was not really inspired. And I was like, yo, if I have to do this
Mm.
for like 3 more years and then still go to law school, this is
Yeah.
not gonna really work for me. So I spoke to my counselor and I was like, hey, what should I do? She was like, what do you like to do? I was like, I listen to music. I talk about music. I go to concerts. She was
Mhm.
like, maybe you should look into our communications program. And I'm also African, like
Yeah.
I mentioned. I'm
I was just
Nigerian.
about to ask you, what did your Nigerian parents say when
You
you said, "Mom
know,
and Dad, I don't want to be a lawyer no more. I want to write about music."
right. Well, I had a lot of control over just my own like academic journey,
Mhm.
just to due to the
That's
way that my
good.
life is set up. So I was allowed to like kind of do what I wanted to do when I wanted to
Yeah.
do it, which I'm grateful for. So I didn't get too much pushback from my family, but
That's
pretty
amazing.
much, yeah, I got into the communications department and I really just found myself loving my classes, actually
Yeah.
going to class, actually
Yeah.
participating. And then when it came time to like start applying for internships, I was getting a
Mhm.
lot of great opportunities. I interned at like CBS News, I
Nice.
interned at the Recording Academy, and I just got so many cool opportunities. And I was like, yo, I think I really want to do this full time. And
Yeah.
so I initially started focusing on like marketing within music.
Okay.
That was like my first entry level into like the industry. But actually, even
Mhm.
before that, when I graduated from school and I just needed a job, I
Mhm.
worked at Yelp. And
Oh,
yeah, which a
okay.
lot of people don't know. I worked at Yelp for about a
Yeah.
year and
That's
I was
cool.
doing
Oh.
we love Yelp. I use Yelp all the time. But
Yeah.
working at Yelp and working
Mhm.
specifically in sales, it's like cold
Oh.
calling
Oh,
and it's like a
yeah.
sales floor. And some
Okay.
people I know that I went to school with and who worked there for many years, they
Yeah.
thrived. They did so well there. But like
Yeah.
for me, I have to be passionate about my work. And I just
Mhm.
wasn't passionate about calling like local businesses and getting them
That's
to sign up
real.
for Yelp Premium. That was just not my interest.
That's real. That's real.
Um, so with that being said, like I did that for a year. The pandemic happened. And then I went to a career fair that Howard was throwing. And as
Mm.
one of the few people there who had like full-time experience, I
Mhm.
spoke to a recruiter who was hiring for Variety. And they were like,
Okay.
wow, like we love your experience, your internships. Like we'll let you know if we have something available.
Yeah.
He emails me back like 3 days later, like, hey, we have an open role at Variety. It's an entry level, but I think it would be
Mm.
great for you. I took the
Nice.
role. I was working in brand partnerships,
Okay.
specifically around like TV and film. So like not quite
Mhm.
music, but just getting closer and closer.
Yeah,
And I would work
yeah.
on a handful of like music projects a year.
Nice.
And we would create like events and we would create like digital packages for like different brands. And
Mhm.
then I want to say maybe about a year and a half, 2 years into working there, um, this is post pandemic, concerts are just starting to come back, and Burna
Mhm.
Boy is performing at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah.
And by this point, me and the music editor at Variety had become pretty close. So I'm like,
Mhm.
hey, is anybody planning on covering this show at Madison Square Garden? Like, it's a
Yeah.
big moment for Afrobeats. He was the first
Right.
Nigerian artist. And my editor is like,
Mhm.
yeah, like I'm super busy. I would love to, but I just don't have the time. Do you want to go and
Oh my gosh. That's all you
write
need.
about it? And I was
That's
like, Yeah.
That's
And
literally all you need.
sometimes that's all you
You
need,
just
just
need
like
somebody to be
one
like,
moment.
one moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
actually, I connect with your story about CultureCon because I was not planning on going. The tickets were
Yeah.
very expensive, but one of my friends was going to come to New
Mm,
York. She couldn't
mhm.
go. And she was like, "Do you want my ticket?" And I was like,
Oh
"You know
my
what? Sure,
gosh.
why not?"
Ah.
So I went to the show. The show was incredible. It
Mhm.
was his first time premiering Last, which was like, a song that had the summer
Yeah.
like on lock for a
Yes.
moment.
Yes.
And so I went to the concert, had a great
Mhm.
time, wrote the article that very night as soon as I got home. The article went up the next day. It was one of
Yeah.
our best performing articles for the month.
Oh my
And my editor was like, "Hey, do you want
gosh.
to keep doing this? Do you want to see like Tiwa Savage? Do you
Stop.
want to see so and so?"
Mm.
So I did that for a moment, and like Afrobeats became like
Mhm.
my pocket. And I
Yeah.
started interviewing some of the biggest names within the genre.
Talk about
And
that. Let's talk
yeah,
about the actual like interviewing. And I'm curious too. So, fun fact, I wanted to start doing guests on this podcast because I don't know, I just like really enjoy having a conversation with people. It feels natural.
yeah.
But when it comes to like properly interviewing, oh my God, I was so nervous to interview you today.
Oh,
That's why I
really?
did some research. I was
Well, I
like, this is a
appreciate
legit
that.
person. He interviews other people, so he gonna know if I know my stuff or
Right,
not.
right, right.
you
I pay
know?
attention. I peep. I peep. You've been doing a
So
great job.
thank you. Thank you. But I'm so curious about like how do you prep to interview artists? And then how do you make an artist also feel comfortable to like we want to have a conversation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for one, I'm fortunate where most of the artists that I interview, I genuinely like, and
Yeah.
I genuinely pay attention to not only their music, but their progression and their journey and things of that nature. So a lot of
Hmm.
times it feels organic, like having a conversation with an internet friend that I've been paying attention to for a while.
Yeah.
And then in terms of making them feel comfortable, I always start with the music element of
Mm.
things because a lot of artists are nervous about interviews because a lot of journalists unfortunately want like gotcha moments and like sound bites.
Yeah.
And that's never been
Yeah.
my brand of journalism. I'm
Yeah.
more into like figuring out their headspace when they recorded one of my favorite songs, or kind of
Mm.
figuring out what do the music lovers on the internet want to know
Right.
about you, and kind of
Exactly.
advocate for them in that moment because the
Mm.
average person doesn't have time to talk to Odile or talk to
Right.
Thames or
Right.
talk to,
You
artists
talk
that
to
we really love,
Thames.
So
Yeah.
I take that as just like an honor to kind of like be there with them. And
Hmm.
also I think artists are so special and they need to be protected. There's so many
Yeah.
artists that we love from the 90s, from the early 2000s, talk about how like they have such a hard time with the media villainizing
Yes.
them. It's part of the
Yep.
reason why Beyonce don't talk to us
I was
anymore.
just
You know
about to
what I
say
mean?
that's
Like
a huge reason why. And now, like, I don't know if you've seen this trend on Twitter, but we've been seeing all her like old interview
hmm
clips. And then we're like, yeah, this is why.
yeah.
This is why. Everybody wanted that gotcha moment. Everybody just wanted not even just a gotcha moment, just asking really weird and unproductive questions.
Right.
you
Right.
know? Yeah.
And it's like when you look back, it's like even at that time, she was already one of the most like incredible artists of our time. And to think that
100%.
you have like a moment with Beyonce, like just know Parkwood Beyonce, if you ever need an interview, I will do a great job. I will do my research because
Yes.
like I think it's so special to be in a space with an artist and actually like dig into their creative mind. As opposed to the
Yeah.
gossip and all of those things. If it's important enough, we'll find out if we're supposed to find out.
Right.
But when it comes to the music, there's so many things that you can dive into. And
1000%.
that's how I care for artists that are on the come up now because there's going to be a
Hmm.
time when they only want to do 2 interviews a year, and I want to make sure
Yeah.
that they still come back and do one with me. So
Absolutely, because they're gonna remember you.
yeah.
Yes. Okay, I love that. Do you have a favorite interview?
I was thinking about that because a lot of people ask me that. And a
Mhm.
lot of times when I do interviews, like I just kind of do them and then they just kind of go into my subconscious and I forget about
Yeah.
them. But I would say two. One of the more recent ones was this artist named Samara Sin. She's
Okay.
a up and coming like rapper. She like really leans more into like the poetry and bars element of her music,
Nice.
which I really respect. And she was just super open and really like vulnerable about her journey, being a working artist, having to
Yeah.
decide like, okay, am I gonna take this leap and move to LA with no plan and no job? Or am I
Mm.
gonna just stay at home and figure it out there?
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed talking to her because I feel like she's one of those artists that if you don't know about her now, you will certainly know about
Same.
her in like 2 years.
Yeah.
And I was happy to get one with her early. And then I would say Tiwa Savage because she's a great Afrobeat icon. Like
Yeah.
everyone from like Irish Star to Thames to Ashake to Rema all like cite her as like an
Yeah.
influence, and she really paved the way for like the modern Afrobeat pop star, especially on the
Yeah.
women's side. When you think of like Tyler, you think of Thames,
Yeah.
you think of Ira. She's kind of the blueprint, almost like in a Beyonce type of way for them. So
Okay.
having a moment to like chat with her for like over an hour and just kick
Oh,
it was really
wow.
fun.
That's good.
Yeah.
She must feel really comfortable with you. Over an
Yeah.
hour? That's
Yeah. Yeah. And
shocking.
she was like, "Do you have any more questions at the end?" And I was like, I'm sure I do, but like, I don't know if your people are like,
Right, like wrap it
want us to
up.
wrap up. You got some stuff to go do
Yeah.
today. But that
Oh,
was
that's
really great.
amazing.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all know this or not, but Emmanuel had the opportunity to interview Usher. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
for Ebony. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
I'm fangirling right now. How
As
was
most people
that?
do, yeah. Usher's incredible. It's totally
Yeah.
reasonable. Like he was super gracious. That's one thing I will say about him. Super duper
Wow.
gracious, super open, and just
hmm
like very communicative about his vision and about his
Yeah.
own journey. And I think he's
Nice.
someone who has spent a lot of time thinking about his own journey and his
Mm.
impact and kind of knowing where he falls within the culture and his
Yeah.
place within history as a musician. Just
Yeah.
very self-aware. That was the thing that really came off in our talk. But yeah, he was our global visionary of the year for the Ebony Power 100 Gala, and he graced our cover, and we got like a behind the scenes like moment into his tour and a lot of like exclusive
Mm.
images. And it was just great talking to someone who is such a legend, is so
Yeah.
aware of their power,
hmm
and also what he represents for Black music. Like
Absolutely.
he understands that he's
Absolutely.
a role model for a lot of generations, and he understands
Yeah.
like so many people are influenced by him and see him as
hmm
like kind of the standard,
Yeah.
and he doesn't use that to then, be bossy or to like,
Yeah.
demand any type of like
Right.
respect. He's just aware of like his presence. And then in return, people are excited to honor him and
Oh, I love
excited to say,
that.
like, yes, I'm inspired
I
by
love
you.
that.
And I think we need to have more legends like that who are
100%.
gracious
Yeah.
because, it's exciting to see someone get older and get seasoned and still have this like humility to them.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. And I'm sure also it happened probably over time for him too,
Yeah.
because he's been doing this since he was like 14
Yeah.
years old. So I'm also sure like as the years progress and stuff like that, and you just start to like look at your career a little bit more like blessings,
Mhm.
you just become more appreciative to all of it. So that's amazing. You also got to interview him when, again, not the height, because like, I mean, come on, like when has he ever not been
On
like this
top.
poppin'? But like he had a great year. Like the Super
Yeah.
Bowl performance, the tour was everywhere. Oh
Everywhere.
my goodness. So yeah, that was really cool. So how do you actually, I don't know if you can say much about like how you landed that
Mhm.
interview, but like how does it typically work? Do you volunteer, or do they kind of just assign it to you?
Yeah, so in a moment like that, because it was such a big effort for our team, a lot
hmm
of my like executive leadership kind of handled that.
hmm
And I volunteered and was like, hey, we have a music story. This is now
Yeah.
happening. Like, I would love to do it. And my
Yeah.
team really supported me in it. And I got a lot of great feedback from my team and
Yeah.
felt very prepared. And we
That's
worked through it like,
amazing.
okay, these are the questions we want to ask. Hey, consider this angle. He's a teenage like heartthrob. Also, he
hmm
was the blueprint for like, two musicians getting into a relationship and being kind of like the it couple between him and
hmm
Chili.
hmm
All of that. Like, so I had a great team really supporting me and creating the vision for it. But I
Awesome.
guess when it comes to like general interviews, a lot of times like I'm
Yeah.
close with a lot of publicists. So I'll just hit up a publicist like,
Okay.
hey, I see so and so is about to drop an album. Can we do something? Or they're about to go on tour. Or people will reach out to
Mm,
me. So it's a little bit of a give and take in that way.
that's so
And
cool.
so, yeah, much credit to like my executive team who really
Yeah.
like handled the Usher moment, and I got to just come in and like do the interview. So that was
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
That's so freaking cool. And kind of my final question for you is what are how far do you want to take this? Like what are your goals? What are your dreams when it comes to this? Is it maybe starting your own media company? Is it kind of like doing your own thing? Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah. I love doing on-camera interviews. That's why I'm so
hmm
happy to be here, honestly, because this is so
I'm
great
sorry.
to just like, speak my mind and kind of be able to like articulate myself in a different way outside of just the
Yeah.
written media. So I definitely
Yeah.
want to get more into that. So I can see myself being a podcast host or being a
Yes.
guest on more podcasts. I could see
Yes.
myself doing more like public speaking.
Mm.
Um, I have a lot of plans for 2025 and just kind of getting out there and building my own brand because I
Yeah.
do think of people like Oprah. I think of people like Speedy Mormon from Complex, and they
Yeah.
do such a great job of like creating a brand around themselves,
Mhm.
and people feel safe talking to them because they already have this brand around the type of interviews that they do. So kind of
Exactly.
touching on what you mentioned before, like I want people to come to me when they feel like they have an important story to tell.
Mhm.
And yeah, that's kind of what I see myself kind of diving into.
I
I want to
love
be the
that.
go-to person for good moments.
I love that, and I'm so excited. Like, I'm so
Yeah.
excited to watch your journey
Thank
and to
you.
accomplish that. I cannot thank you enough for
Oh
coming on
man.
here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Would love to have you back,
Oh,
you
let
know,
me know. Let
because
me
especially when
know.
you said earlier that you love to kind of debate on topics that you know, we
Yeah.
could have like a whole, like you said, a podcast episode about like best performers. We could just like kick in, have
Yeah,
fun.
totally.
But yeah, thank you so much. Do you want to like let everyone know where they can find you, follow you, all
Yeah.
that?
So yeah, you can find me on Instagram at Kusanye, Kusanye. I'm also on LinkedIn for my professionals. Like I actually like to post on there, and like there's a lot of cool stuff on there. It's actually a really dope platform. And you can find me on there. You can check out my articles on ebony.com. You could get that through my Instagram as well. I'm around. You can say what's up. Yeah, I love it.
Love that. Well, thank you guys so much for listening, watching for those on video, and I'll catch you guys next Wednesday. Bye.
Yeah.